Walpole Permanent Building Committee today on May 7th at 6 PM. I believe we have all of the committee members. Jim, you're sitting in as ex officio for Patrick, right?
Yeah, Patrick's just, staff support.
Yeah,
We're both
okay.
here for staff
All
support.
right. And I would entertain a motion to accept the previous minutes.
Second it.
Who made the motion? Okay, Lance. Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 700. Okay. Kate, do you want to start? I think this
can-
may be Chris right there.
Yeah, he's walking in now.
Okay.
I can talk through we can go out of order and talk through the pre-qual update if you want me to touch base on that while Chris is getting set up, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
So we had our filed sub-bid GC pre-qualification committee kickoff meeting in April. The committee was voted at the last PBC meeting, and we had, I think, most of the voting members on the meeting. The RFQ is currently out for both the GC and the filed sub-bids. Questions are due back tomorrow. The final addendum will go out Friday, and we'll get all of the qualifications in on the 15th. So we've only gotten 3 questions to date. I think it's been pretty straightforward, so we're on track to get the qualifications in on the 15th and then distribute everything to the pre-qualification committee before our next meeting on May 17th. So we're right on schedule. Any questions on the process? I know some of you sat through it with the middle school, but.
Nope.
Is this in the package?
No, sorry,
Yeah. Well,
I
this slide
shouldn't look.
is in the package.
I have it
Yep.
digitally, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, it's towards the end. I should have
Towards the end,
numbered
all
the
right.
pages. Chris, do you want to talk through the site plan update? I can, if you want to use my computer here, we can pull it up. It is in their package. A little bit bigger than we had on the-
Can I do it from here?
Yeah. Just in here.
hi, Chris.
I have a laser pointer as well.
Does it work on the screen?
Sorry, it's also the blown up page in the back. It's in the packet, but it's also that last page. So you can see it bigger.
Yeah, laser pointers don't work on TV screens. Okay, sorry for being late. Apparently traffic from Boston is
There's traffic out there?
more than an hour and 25 minutes from downtown, so.
That's quick, actually.
All right, so the site plan has been worked on quite a bit over the last bit of time, and I think the option that is that we're moving forward with at this point, and I think it's currently being the sort of last level of review from fire and police, those first responders. But district has reviewed this, the central administration, the high school, everybody's sort of landed on this iteration of the site plan is something that we want to include in the package. I'll sort of just start at the most sort of obvious bit is that this sort of green bit here, which is where the existing entry into the school is now going to be filled in, and then we move the entry sort of north on Common Street so that we get a better access to the circulation of car traffic to go around the building, and that's really one of the biggest, this is very distracting for me, but hopefully you guys are okay. The intent here is that it goes around the building. The car traffic goes around the building, and then the bus traffic goes in front of the building, and that's sort of the difference between the red line and the orange line in the diagram. And that's ideal in the sense that we can separate, boils down to separating professional drivers from non-professional drivers in cars. And keeping the car traffic separate from the bus drivers is good for student safety. And so we allow that by entry into the site. Buses take a left, cars take a right. There is some parking up front and along the bus loop that already is there, and I think that would primarily be for visitors or early staff that may arrive for parking there. And after hours events. So we're adding 29 spots over here, and then as you go around the site, sort of up, moved the arrow. So as you go up around the back of the school, you can see this next bit that we're working on up in the top there, which is where the cars connect back into the site, and then they go through sort of a meandering path. And the shape of it is a bit of a response to site plan and sort of natural desire lines, but one of the things to keep traffic calming measures is you don't want a perfectly straight route from one point to the next, and that creates places where people will speed up and just blast right through the parking lot. And so it has these curved features that help calm the traffic on site, keep people at those speeds they need to be at. And then we have the drop-off area here for parents. So we've got this big, long queuing process that happens that hopefully keeps backed up cars off of Common Street, which is an improvement, and then gives a nice sort of walk pedestrian pathway to the front door of the school. And then we have some slightly reconfigured parking in this area, which creates a limit of work, and then an expanded green zone and pedestrian zone to reach out and connect and sort of we're trying to make the pedestrian crossings of the traffic and wherever cars are or vehicles are, we're trying to minimize those and sort of make it really pedestrian oriented so that, again, producing a safer site. And then we have this slot up here that we're adding parking to and access to. It's where a current underutilized ball field is, and behind the snack shack that is there now. And so that's part of the strategy as well. And then
Talk about the rationale for closing off the entrance there at Turco Field and making that a dual left or dual exit.
right here,
No, go left.
here,
Yeah.
the rationale for making it exits.
It's a dual exit now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's an entrance and exit.
Yeah, I think we're trying to bring all traffic in. You can actually enter in right
Yeah,
here.
but all traffic is now on the north side. You gotta go all the way around the building.
You can enter right here.
It says dedicated left turn. It's 2 exits.
There's a dedicated left turn exit and a dedicated right turn exit, but there's a third lane.
Can't enter there.
There's a third lane right there.
Oh, there is?
That's it.
It's just to the right of the right turn, or left
You're
turn.
seeing 2.
I see 3.
Yeah, there's 3 lanes.
It's not showing it as an entrance.
It doesn't show as there's no entry arrow,
We're
so
closing
it's,
that off from
So
being an
what
entrance.
what Jeff's saying, Chris, is maybe just an arrow showing that it's also a one-way. I see the 3 lanes there, and just an arrow or something.
Yeah. I mean, you typically don't. Well, we can, it's easy, it's pavement markings, but. Okay, and then we're adding parking down here in the sort of front of the Plimpton building, and then readdressing these sort of exiting things, as Jeff had said. So, so that's really kind of the lay of the site and sort of the way the site package is operating right now in terms of vehicular flow. Again, this has been reviewed a couple times with the district and the principals, and think of all the proposals they've worked on over the years, this seems to be hitting on all chords, so.
I'm sort of curious, Chris, of how many, like, it says parent drop-off. Is that extend all the way along the addition? I mean, how many cars
Yeah.
are you expecting for folks to drop off?
So the queue goes all the way back from, essentially the first person in line up here
Right,
would be where we ideally have, and then you can see that's sort of the drop-off lane there. So cars would pull into that, and then you still have passing lanes
okay.
on the
so-
right. And so you really would be stopped up in this area, and I think a lot of times when we do these traffic studies, it's like a matter of, I think the engineers usually plan for like 10 to 17 seconds or something like that per car to get a student out, and then the car is now moving again. And so when you do that, the traffic distance from there to there is like much longer than 17. So every car in, there's probably more cars coming out. And so I don't know if I know the number off the top of my head for how many cars we can allow for queuing, but I think this distance right here goes all the way back up to the edge of the addition, and
Right.
that curb line is made for a dedicated drop-off lane.
Now, folks would pull in there, kids would drop off,
Yep.
then they'd pull back out into the
Yep.
traffic lane, yeah. Yeah.
And ideally, you wouldn't have any scenarios where you're doing like a parallel parking kind of
Right,
like,
no.
you don't want people in reverse, so you just like pull in, and then if
Pull
it
out,
gets
right.
backed up, you wait your turn, and then you can like pull out around, but no
I mean,
backing up.
It looks like maybe about 7, 8, 9 cars, so maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at least that, I think.
But they're gonna be queuing all the way around the building, all the
Yeah,
way
they
to
will.
Common
Queuing,
Street.
yes, but not actively getting out of the car drop off.
That's kind of where I see the issue, because you're gonna have kids pulling in to park. 'Cause all the kids park along the back, students. At the same time, parents are queuing up. Same thing at pickup too.
I mean,
Right now, they're queuing in the front, and that's administrative parking.
yeah.
It doesn't really affect the students.
Well, I mean, again, there's the entry on Common on the south side. So students can get to any of these parking spots, and then.
Yeah, but they can't get to any of the back parking spots. 'Cause
Sure.
the Parents are in their way.
Sure. I mean, all I can say is, Mr. Imbush, who's been dealing with this for quite a long time, really favored this approach, and so, along with the rest of the district, so.
Yeah, it's tough with the queue, like, to your point, just trying to get the cars off the road, met with Rich.
You're getting them
Keller.
off Common Street, which is good.
Yeah,
But you don't really have two lanes. You can,
yeah.
one
I
for
know,
students to be parking, and then another one for parents to be
I know
queuing.
some other high schools, I know KP used to have that queuing,
Yeah.
and parents were coming out, you know, they were queuing as the kids were coming out. I don't think there's a perfect, resolution to this, but yeah, to your point, Jeff, getting them off the Common Street is important.
So, I just had some thoughts. So I get it, you know, you're trying to get cars off the street, you know, from start to finish in the mornings, it's somewhere between 7:05 to about 7:28 is really heavy. I live right across the street. And so, I think the challenge isn't necessarily getting the cars off the common street. It's the cars slowing down, and the people who don't want to be stuck in traffic is the issue. Have we pulled back? Like, so that's great for the pedestrians, and I'm all for like kids and the cars slowing down once a vehicle, bus, whatever, delivery truck makes it on campus. But I'm thinking about pull a little further back. Is there new signage being proposed along Common Street? You know, any new, you know, active, you know, crossings? I think that's the challenge, because there are kids who still walk as well, and so I don't know if it's still safe enough for them to get to the destination, you know, from the accessing streets, which is common. And so the new curb cut, is that also a dedicated left for people?
Entry only, yeah.
It's entry only, so now you're gonna have cars queuing up on both sides from Washington and from the other side trying to come in. You got a right turn and a left turn. And that, I think that's always what the challenge is, and the reason why it was even a lot more dangerous was because of Massachusetts Avenue cars trying to just come across. So you had cars trying to take a left, trying to get through that intersection, and trying to come across Mass Ave to drop a kid off with a special project or something. So I don't know if that resolves or lessens the impact, but I think we probably should be looking, you know, past South Street and right after Washington Street. You know, growing up in the city and working in the city, every other block, there's a street light to slow cars down. In Walpole, from Washington Street down to School Street or Main Street, I think it's almost a little over a mile and a half before there's a street light to kind of say, hey, stop. And so I think that's the problem. It's a little bit further away, and I don't know if anybody's thought about thinking of slowing that traffic down. Hey, there's a school up here. You're getting closer. I know there's the speed sign when you're coming up past South Street, but it's like, it needs to start back at School Street. Like, school's in session, be careful, go at your, you know, go at your own risk, because you're gonna be stuck here for the next 17 to 25 minutes. And it is what it is. I think that, I'm just thinking for the neighborhood and for kids who walk up the hills, because there's a bunch of kids who still park down in the neighborhood on the streets they can, and they walk up and they gotta cross the street. And so that's what my concern is. And I'm the guy who was walking to the commuter rail station trying to get across the street. And so, that's just my own personal experience. And so, this is great, but I think we probably need to go a little bit further before we start getting into the on-campus stuff. It's just really important.
My thoughts on this one is, we're meeting with our public safety department heads and our DPW on Thursday, is it, or tomorrow? To go over this.
They're looking at this now. That's,
Yeah.
the middle school is
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah, and then we're doing this one with a similar type of thing with them.
Yep.
So I want to get some, this is more just preliminary for you guys, and just to show you where TAP is at internally. Us as department heads, Bridget, our team as department heads have looked at this. We like it, we've looked at a couple of different versions. So it's more or less just feedback time, and I understand what you're saying about off-site stuff, traffic lights. Quite honestly, I need the PBC to focus on-site. And if we get into traffic lights and, you know, if the town engineer and police department determine that that's necessary, they'll go to the road commissioners, which is the select board, and ask for, you know, a capital budget appropriation on that one. Because stoplights we're looking at, Coney Street was close to $1 million. I know the Walmart one that they put in near the Dr. Detail was about $1 million. It's gonna drive up the cost significantly. So these guys were charged at looking at the site, and, you know, if other off-site improvements need to be made, we'll have to go through the appropriate authority.
And so, speaking of cost, what is the cost at now with this version? Because the last time it was 4.1.
We don't have estimates in hand. That's part of the process here, is that we've got, the next round of estimating package goes out, I think, next week, or the 15th. And this diagram, or this, what you see right now on the screen, is gonna be included in that. And so we'll have a firm price on all of these improvements, these on-site improvements. And so,
And I'm not talking about you know, I mean, in front of my house, even though people still don't stop when you press it at will,
yeah,
I'm just talking about, you know, the solar panel thing, and you come in, I don't think that's $1 million.
oh, likely not, but I think it
No.
involves traffic engineering, and we did, first round review, have a conversation with police, and I think, to the right of this drawing is north, and there's a
Right.
bit of a hill that goes up, and I think there already is some signage up there, and we did have that,
It's just right before you get to the
Yeah.
bus
yeah.
turn in, it's
Yeah,
a
so
it's a speed limit
We
sign.
did have the conversation with traffic and police and engineering to say maybe that does need to move further up the road.
Yeah,
But it's not part of the project scope, as Jim was saying. We're sort of focused on site right now, because we
Right.
don't have much budget to accomplish even this, to your point.
I know.
what's it cost?
I
So,
know it's
yeah.
out of scope, but I'm
Yeah.
saying there probably should be a
Needs to
a
do
speeding
something, yeah.
sign on the other side saying,
Sure.
hey, you're going this fast, just that suggestion. And I'm just saying, like, there are kids walking from the Washington Street side as well, trying
Sure.
to cross the street, and it's really busy.
Sure.
And the fact that all that traffic's gonna be directed and coming out at that one vantage point, I've seen 3 accidents there, just people just trying to take the left, and they get impatient, because
Sure.
they're sitting in the traffic that they were sitting in 10 minutes before, and they're trying to get in and out, so.
Okay.
Maybe what's helpful, Chris, is to, I mean, I'm sure you were charged, and the design team was charged with, a brief. Here are the goals. Here's what we're trying to fix. And maybe understanding what you're trying to fix, what you were charged with remedying, we can assess how you've done with this plan, like, you should be able to tick off and say, our goal was to get more parking, our goal was to, eliminate this left-hand turn, or, it's helpful to kind of just spell that out, and then say, here's the solution, here's where we've managed to accomplish the things we've set out to do, here's where we're falling a little bit short.
It might have been like 700 or something like that.
Chris, I don't know if this is to you or Jim or Kate, but did our initial estimates on this include any improvements or upgrades to Common Street?
No.
So all it did include, the only work, if you will, that is included in this, in our initial estimates, was for the entryways, curbing on the entryways and things like that.
Well, I would say it's all confined to the site itself. It
Yeah.
was everything inside the curbway and entryways. Is that a good way to put it? Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the scope that you were working with, so I get
So
it.
if there is determined that there should be some improvements for traffic control on Common Street, that's not a part of this project or this estimate.
Not now, but we probably have to handle it the same way we did the middle school. We'd have to handle it the same way we did the middle school.
Contingency at the middle school, we know, is currently at, is it 4 million or 6 million, Kate?
It
Four
was
and
six-
change?
Yeah.
So we have the ability. Right now, I don't know what our ability is with this project. Obviously, we're going to have a contingency in here. But, maybe we can address it after the fact, or maybe I have to go back and hit up free cash or hit Chapter 90 funds to do if there's other improvements needed for Common Street. That's to be determined. Yeah.
Well, I think Lance raises a good point, and that is that we need to take a look at if there has to be something, I don't want to use the word global, but I'll use the word global. It has to be more than just the site. Understanding that it's a separate project right now, and we don't, the money has not been allocated to that or even estimated. But if in the course of these next couple of weeks where we're doing the final review, if something is identified that needs to be done outside the site on Common Street, I think we need at least to identify it and put it on a list of things to look at.
Yeah, but as Jim said, he's meeting with safety and let them deal with it.
Yeah, I think we would lean
Our
on,
Scope for now until we gotta pay for it.
we would lean on them to advise on that and say, we think this could be improved down the road or up here, or something like that, and then we could take that advisement. Yeah. So. Okay.
I know Nancy had a couple of questions on the site. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to set something up on the side?
If it's okay with you, I'd like to ask a couple
Okay,
of questions.
we can spend a few minutes, couple minutes, but if it's going to be lengthy, we'll probably have to have a side meeting on it.
Okay, so,
Sorry, Nancy, would you mind coming up
Sure.
so we can catch it? Thank you.
I just want to be clear, I'm talking as an individual, I'm not talking as a school committee member. I'm worried about the budget, and I'm worried about spending money that maybe we don't possibly have to spend, because at the bottom of the priority list are the science-related additions. And if possible, I just want to make sure that we get to do the things in the science area. So my main question is kind of related to what Dina was saying. What problems are we trying to solve? And I know we're trying to get cars off Common Street, but I think Lance is also right that there are people who are not gonna go up and around. They're gonna be dropping their kids off, because that's just what people do, especially when they're in a hurry. But I heard an estimate of $1 million to extend the front driveway. I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but ideally, I'd like to save that and make sure that the money got spent in the science area. So,
Can I, that million, that was for the proposal last year that Mike was put forward, right? Because he was originally looking at doing that like 2 years ago, to move the driveway, it was closer north, and that was $1 million, if I remember right.
but we're still talking about extending the driveway. And I guess my question is, do we need to do that?
The
Because
principal of the school is saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget, that it is needed. And actually, the school committee approved the schematic design back in June without it. And then we came back in the fall after Stephen said it was very important to him to add, and the school committee voted to add it back in there. So yes, I would say, with the school committee taking their vote back in March, it is needed. They advanced it to the design phase. So, yeah, and we participated in that discussion.
we didn't discuss the driveway that night, but we did vote to move to design. I voted against it, but because I wanted the chance to talk about this, but that's okay. I can do,
But
it's
I
okay.
think also with the driveway, and I don't wanna, he's not here, and it'd be good, to maybe have him come to a future meeting. That was the queuing, and, like, to your point, the kids coming across the street and weaving in and out of the traffic when you have the line of the traffic coming through, and trying to find some way, and he's probably changed it, I don't know, over how many years.
That was a project originally, a couple of years ago, that wasn't part of this. It was just something else that was looking to be done.
He's always been trying
Right.
to find different ways.
But
to
now
speed
that
up
you're
what
doing
it
this
is.
renovation, let's incorporate it into this project.
But, this is why it's really good to kind of understand, here's a checklist of
Yeah.
things that we're trying to solve. Because then when estimating or pricing is provided, we might be able to get individual numbers for each of these things. And then people can determine what their priority is. If priority is the science classrooms, then maybe, adding 10 more parking spaces isn't as important. Do you know what I'm saying? We can begin to understand where the money is allocated, where the money is going, which problems are being solved, and how we'd like to prioritize those
And if you
things.
remember, I think at first, he was looking to extend it this way, right? But that would have been way too costly to go through and up and over the grass, remember? Like, that was one, we felt like queuing wise, it really wasn't gonna give us what we needed for the
Yeah.
cost. It just wasn't cost effective, so we scrapped that.
That was gonna get, what, 20 cars off
Yeah, it was- it
Common?
was
It
a-
wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough.
And it was a capital appropriation that we've rolled into this project. It was, I think, about 600 grand that we said, let's pump the brakes, hold off. To our benefit, this is gonna be a much more better designed project, but there was a separate capital appropriation specifically for
Yeah.
this.
And is that money still there?
Oh, yeah, it's part of the budget for this
It's rolled
project.
into this
It was
project?
approved. I
Yeah.
think I was on FinCom.
I think you were.
Terrific. All right.
Yeah, I think this effectively achieves an earlier commitment the town had made for this area. And so that's sort of why it resurfaced as part of the project. And then to the point of individual budget items, we've been doing that all along. And so I think if you, I don't know if it's in this packet or not, but we have identified all of the various elements of
Perfect.
the project previously, which has been fed to the school committee several times, and then that's how they arrived sort of at their primary rankings in some ways, but also based on scopes that they found the most advantageous to the goals of the school committee.
Sure, value for money. I'm totally
Well,
understanding.
it's both, right? So it's basically they have a certain thing that they want to get done as a school committee, as a board. They've taken their votes and said, these are the priorities that we need. They ranked them because we asked them to, because we knew the list was
Long.
it was too much money from the budget. So we had to say, okay, in the instance that we get to the end, we're going to have to get to a place where we mark these as add alternates or something like that. In public bid laws, we have to rank them in order of add alternates. And so we said, we need you to start thinking about what those are, and solving this traffic issue of buses being separate from cars and pedestrian access and queuing off of Common Street back into the site and all of those things that Mr. Embush had given to the community several years ago, and then now as part of this project. Those things all rose to the top, and that's where we are now. And so,
I think what we've gotta keep our eye on, to Lance's point, I think Nancy mentioned it too, that when we get that next round of costs, to be, you know, so it's not so exorbitant, that's it, and we're not getting anything else. So it's just, and I don't think
Yeah.
that'll happen, but we do need to keep our eye on
Yeah.
that.
and we'll have it broken out the exact same way we have previously, where we have each of the separate scopes, so you can see it clearly, what's going on, and you'll be able to identify that. But
So that priority list was actually reviewed at the last PBC meeting, so it was in the last presentation, but,
I recall.
yeah, it was the field house was number one, the site work and driveway extension together were number two, the multipurpose music was number three, student services number four, HVAC number five, which is kind of dropped off now to the separate project, science wing number six, and greenhouse number seven with science, so that's how it was prioritized by the school committee.
Based on looking at what those costs are, right? That's why it would be interesting to come in and see what it comes in as.
And so with the the only other question I have now is, so there's the opportunity of 63 new parking spaces with this scheme. How does the school figure out who gets the parking?
That's the
It's a
principal's
lottery.
job.
Right, and so, you know,
your job's to provide the spots, and the school has to figure out how to use them.
I'll go and talk to Bush myself and just say, let's take a step back here, you know, because it's like a free fall, you know. I watch it all day. It's pretty fascinating, the hierarchy and who parks where and how they come and go. It's interesting. And I'm not just looking out my window all day. It just happens.
Whole process, yeah.
It's okay if you are. No judgment. A schedule, maybe?
Yeah.
Do
Any
you
other-
Go ahead.
I just want to make a couple points. I think I'm hearing two things, both of which are valid. One is what Dino, the point that Dino was making, he'd like to see a list of the requirements to make sure that basically this site plan meets those requirements, okay?
Or where it may fall short.
Yeah. The second part of it is, and I think, I'm gonna say this very clearly, I think we all understand that there could very well be a cost problem once this goes ahead and gets costed out in the next round. And at that point in time, that's when we start to go through the value engineering process.
Yeah,
And that's to say, well, we can save $200,000 here or $300,000 here. You may be thinking along those lines, but I don't think it's an appropriate discussion right now until we see what the total cost is and what the scope of the value engineering activity is gonna be and what it has to accomplish. Makes a big difference if it's 100,000 versus $1 million. So I'm gonna suggest that, one is that we try to get a quick list, as Dina was suggesting, so that we know what are the really key things that we're trying to accomplish with the site plan and the traffic and so forth like that. And two, let's just delay any discussions of, well, if we don't do this, we'll save this much. I think that's a value engineering discussion to be had in the next, 6, 8 weeks out?
Yeah, and what I was gonna say, Jack, is that's the other reason these guys have designed it the way they have and done it in priorities that the school committee set. So if we can't just do only value engineering, it's just too far over budget, we'll have to start eliminating aspects of the project altogether.
And I'm not sure if this came out in the last meeting, but one of the strategies I was pushing for all along was that let's just design it all so that you have the most choices, because we could have said at DD or something like that, like, it looks like that scope's out of reach based on budget, and then stop designing, and then we end up at a place where you can't have this discussion later. And so I think what our design team is doing is designing those categories that you discussed last week, all of them, to full biddable, constructible documents. And then this committee, coupled with the school committee's wishes on terms of priorities, can direct this design team in a list of alternates, because I think that's probably how you'd want to bid it, is not take them completely out, but just say, these are the ones we know we're doing based on budget, and then we have alternate 1, 2, 3, however many ends up being, and then you have real pricing for it. And if you have contingencies, or you end up with extra money somehow growing on a tree, then you can pick off some of your alternates. But I think that's how we're designing it, so we're trying to give you the most flexibility based on everything we've heard in terms of needs at the school, and that's what we're going to deliver. So I'll go into schedule now.
Chris,
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question. I'll say right up front, it's not necessarily a site question, but it's related to the site. If you look at the new building addition, could you bring that back up? I thought about this when I was at town meeting last night trying to go into the high school. So, all right. You've got the existing main entrance on the front is gonna be there with the long 3% ramp going up.
Right here?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's still the main entrance, okay. However, with the drop-off by parents down by the gym, the field house, let's use the correct term,
Right
the
here?
field house,
Yep.
that's gonna be at the, if you will, at the parking lot level.
Yep.
So if the students or citizens are coming in for an event at the field house and they wanna go up to the school, there's a big difference in elevation between the parking lot level and the level of the gym and the first floor, the main floor of the school, the main school building. Is that just gonna be stairs, or is there an elevator there?
There's no elevator in the addition.
There's no elevator there?
Elevator in the addition. No elevator in the addition.
All right. So if someone wants to go from the field house up to the main building, they're gonna have to walk up at least one flight of stairs.
There's an elevator in the building. There's a small set of steps that transitions sort of at the end of the locker rooms. There's like 3 or 4 steps there. And then you go around the locker rooms down a hallway, and then there's an elevator up at the end of that hall. So I think, to your point, I'm catching what you're saying, that we might need to deal with that in that hallway, that first set of steps.
So the only elevator is the existing elevator that's outside the auditorium right now.
Yeah, my question, can I just follow up with the question? So would you need to do a slope in there?
Potentially,
Okay.
yeah. I need to look at it.
Because the way I'm thinking of it, I think that's down in the wrestling, the wrestling rooms and everything down there with the mat. It's a pretty long hallway, and maybe we could just slope it off.
The hallway is where the steps are a little bit inconvenient, because there's a couple of rooms around those
Yeah.
that we just need to, I need to study it. I appreciate the comment, because I don't think we've looked at that yet, but
Something I think you should take a look at.
certainly.
The access between the field house and the main floor of the school building, because unless you, as Jim just pointed out, unless you're willing to walk a long way to the existing elevator, it's going to be difficult to get up to that first floor.
I think you're probably gonna still walk that distance, but we need to make it accessible. So we'll get on it. Thanks for the comment, I appreciate that.
All right. Keep moving on, thank you.
All right, so our work calendar is in your packets, hopefully?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
smaller version.
Okay, all right. So the way we are doing this is sort of similar to what we did on the middle school, where we're sort of breaking out a detailed calendar view for the sort of rest of the design phase, which is May, June, and July. When you're in construction, this is a little bit harder to do, because it's just sort of all out, do everything. And so it's not really like you know, this week we're working on, you know, exterior details, and then next week we're working on the roof or something like that. We just have staffed the project fully up, and, you know, one person's doing some roof details, someone's doing some window details, and so it's just sort of, we just sort of break it out as saying detailing, consultant coordination, because we're trying to get all those pieces into place of where the mechanical systems are, where, how all of that relates, pathways, everything like that. And so it's sort of a lot of that's going on. The big milestones are the 15th, 60% construction documents. I think we're sort of well on that track in terms of completion and percentage. When we sent out the 100% DD set, I think we were really well past DD and pretty far into CDs already. And so we've been pushing on that. That estimate set will go out on the 15th, and then we get them back about 2 weeks later. And then after that, you'll get all of that reconciled information for your review and discussion at one of these meetings. And then
Here, I can do it here.
so we reconcile early June, and then the way that this really works is that we send out these estimates on June 15th, and then our team just keeps pushing on the drawings as the estimators are doing their work, which is why we can go to the 60% reconciliation, but then also basically a week later sending out a 90% set, because we've made that much progress over the course of those last 3.5, 4 weeks. And that is how that works. And so really what ends up happening is the 90% check, the 90% estimate set ends up just being sort of a check to make sure all the stuff in the 60% set rang true. If we have to do any major value engineering, we're gonna know that as part of the 60% set, and that'll get wrapped in. And then we have those estimates coming back at the end of June, and then in July, we have the bid packages going out on the 17th. And so this is a fairly standard thing for us. This is how we normally do it on these types of projects, so.
Is there any committee other than Conservation Committee that we need to go before?
We're currently working on the conservation planning dates to go through that. So yeah, I think that's really all we're targeting at this point. The sort of the good thing about this too is obviously we want to have comments and feedback from that board in case they have scope that we need to add or capture as part of the project. But the back end of this schedule, which do you have the whole schedule somewhere for them? So the whole schedule is that there's no real sort of dirt moving on site, if you will, until 2025, springtime-ish. And all of the rest of 2024 is going to be spent doing this sort of office work of submittals and all the like procurement of materials and all of that kind of stuff. So it gives us a good run up to boots on the ground, dirt moving in the spring of 2025. And so thankfully that also gives us a permitting window that we can go through if there's any sort of snags on whatever it is that we have to get through regulatory. I don't anticipate anything, but before it's actually required that we be on site, we've got a little bit of run up there. So, but
How long is the Conservation Commission process? I mean,
we're anticipating, I think for the middle school, it was 3 meetings, and it was really a big one, then a follow-up, and then sort of a closure meeting. I don't think this one is nearly as, that one had some jurisdictional issues on one side of it. I don't think there's really anything here other than rainwater and stormwater management, and so again, we don't anticipate it being a big process, so we're right now planning for 2 meetings, and that's the initial review, bring it to them, and then a second one as a sort of a closure, any questions, follow up. So Yeah.
When does the working group get together?
The working group is on, it's every other Thursday, and the last one was a week ago. And so every other Thursday, we meet as a working group to go through things like the traffic idea and what's happening there and other sort of critical components that deal with
Is it an evening
programming.
meeting, Chris, or a date?
It's during the day, 2:30, 5, probably, 2:30, say 2:30.
2:30?
So
Is it okay if I stop by?
it's on Zoom, so I think it's really up to your chair, and then you just don't want to hit quorums because you're a quorum body, so.
Doesn't quorum usually mean minimum, not maximum?
We can't have 3 people there.
If you have 3 people, it's an official meeting.
Oh.
Meaning it's gotta be advertised and all that. We don't wanna do
Oh,
that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So this is not an official meeting with the working group?
It's a working group, right? So we're trying to work through, the critical programming components and stuff like that.
And
We're the board, though. that-
who's involved? Like, who's
Myself,
a member?
Bridget's involved, it's
And Mike Frisha,
more department heads and,
administrator.
these guys, the design team.
And the quorum number is 3, is that what it is?
Yeah, so it's Jack and that's it.
Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget.
And then after that, it gets to be advertised. That's the rub. Now I finally understand. I wish folks had just sort of been plain about that somehow. Maybe I'm just too slow.
We can get you a copy of the open meeting law.
I'm sure I'd love to read that.
But, you know, I think I know what you're getting at. I kind of feel like I would have been a great voice here, right? And so,
A neighborly voice.
at the end of the day,
Well,
I'm
that's
just
your
like,
voices now, right? I think,
Yeah.
so to some degree, working groups are intended to work through the weeds of stuff.
Well, no,
And then once they've gotten it to the proponent, right, the school, the proponent says, we think this works for us. Now we bring it to the committee as sort of a, pretty well baked thing, but you guys have to understand it. You have to put your voice on it, and you have to say, yeah, well, we want that as part of this project. We agree with you. You add your expertise to it, and that's what you've done tonight. So that's what you're here for, and I think that's what this committee is for. So I think don't undervalue this or overvalue the working group, because really that's it's in the weeds of educational conversation. Like what are the kids doing between classes? How do they get from here to there?
Sometimes it's
so-
good to see how the sausage is made, though,
I,
Chris.
I,
You know
I'm
what
not.
saying?
I'm not here to comment on that. I'm just saying that that's what's happening. It's not. There's no secrets. It's just that a lot of times
yeah, no, I'm not.
those experts who do education all day want to sit together and do that. So
Yeah, the stuff that'll put us to sleep, I'm just kidding, but no, I know, I get the flushing through the concepts and the
Yeah.
ideas and, getting everybody all on the same page with a program per se, so, yeah.
if you want to see something here, you just ask us, and we'll. I mean, like one thing actually came up last week for Jack's comment was I'd like to see maybe a better way for you to. I'm going to put words in your mouth, Jack, but convince us that you're making the progress to 60% or you're making the progress to 90%. I don't know we've never done that before. It's just usually like I tell you we're going to hit it and we work to hit it. But I'm going to try to come up with a graphic that shows where we think we are in the process, so that it helps give you confidence that what's happening behind the scenes is happening. But that's one of the comments that comes up there that helps you out later. So.
And I get the 60-90 stuff, that stuff just has to happen.
Yeah.
But the mindset's different at the time you gotta deliver that, because if you don't meet those numbers, you can't bid, you can't advertise and all that other stuff, so I get that.
Any other
What I
questions?
can
for me?
tell you from attending the OAC working group for the Bird Middle School, and I've just started on this one, is that they're very useful. You have all the players involved there. There isn't a lot done at the meeting. What it is people walk away with action items, and then they report to Kate or at the next meeting how it's been closed out or how it's being worked. So it's good because you get a sense of what's going on. You can ask sometimes hard questions. Kate has known that, I've asked hard questions. But what it is there's not a lot done there, it's more, okay, here's the action item, this has been closed, this is still open, this is what's needed. And that's a good way to run a working group, so.
The only, and I'm just sort of, the flip side to that is that we sit here often with a sense that we don't have an opportunity to really influence what's going on. I don't know how Lance might feel, but like, for example, you're gonna do exterior and interior finishes this next time with your working group. You're gonna probably get feedback from them, and decisions are gonna be made at that working group level that are, I don't wanna say are de facto done, but they are pretty much done. If folks are gonna be hitting 60 and 90% CDs, they're done. And when it comes here to us, it's really more a kind of, here's what we're gonna do, as opposed to here's what we're thinking, what's your input? And that feeling sometimes is a little sort of dismaying, that's all.
Chris?
And that's just fine. I mean, like, you know, the discussion has to take place at some point. Some of this stuff's very challenging, and you just want to make sure that all ideas are at least addressed or raised and so on and so forth.
Chris, I have a question on the schedule, and also Jimmy, I think I'm gonna ask you on this one too. We show a date that we're gonna release the formal RFP on the 17th of July, right? We're meeting the night before, which I assume the key element of that meeting will be to approve the package, because otherwise, the previous meeting is a month and a half, 5 weeks before that. To Jim, I've got a question, is who else has to approve the bid package except for this committee? Does the select board have to do it?
No, it's just this committee.
Okay. So when we come in on the 16th, we need to have reviewed the full package and be prepared to make a vote on it so it can be released the next day.
Yes.
So we'll get the package when? And how long will we have a chance to review it?
So, looking at the schedule, seeing when the 60% estimate comes in, you know, we're probably gonna have to add another meeting in here
That's what I
between
think,
these
too.
two meetings, so we're just seeing how everything flushes out.
I agree.
If the numbers come in on budget, it'll be a lot easier, but there might be some hard conversations in between that, so we'll work through the June schedule when there's a gap in the PBC meeting.
I'm gonna suggest we probably won't wanna do it on Tuesday the 2nd, maybe the week before. Doing it the holiday week maybe make it difficult.
Yeah, that's probably the right thing.
What are you looking at?
We'll take a look and propose a date that we think works with
Okay,
us.
thanks.
So sometime between June 4th and July 16th,
Yeah.
we'll add a meeting.
I do think that on that note, so when you get the 60% package, it's gonna be a 60% set of technical construction drawings. And you need to be looking at that with your eye of like, what's missing for bidding, even though there's 20, 30% left to do, 40% left to do, whatever the number is. You need to be looking at that as though that is sort of a review set, it's a check set for you, because there's no way you're gonna get through 300 drawings between 90% and 100, and if I'm honest with you, I don't think that's your job either. Like, you're hiring design professionals to deliver a bid package that is, suitable for bidding. And I think that you're looking to make sure the scope is captured, that, the conversations we're having here around what's in the site plan, what's not. And so I think it would help that process for us to meet the timeline, to get the bids back so that you can present the number to town meeting, and that's the next sort of approval process, is town meeting vote to spend the money. And I think that every package you get from now on, which is gonna be the 60 and 90% packages, you should be reviewing those as though they are packages that were, almost ready to go out, so.
I know sometimes too, good estimators are not only gonna give you a number of what they see, but they're often really good resources, because they're gonna go through these drawings pretty carefully. So I don't know, Kate, what you charge them with, but it's helpful to kind of have their feedback about what they're seeing. Is scope missing? Are they finding themselves guessing? Are they adding a big contingency number to their number because they're just not sure if what they're seeing is complete? You know what I mean? I mean, Chris,
Yeah.
they're good resources too. Not only should we get a number from them, but I think it's almost a kind of a barometer about where things are standing and how good they're looking in terms of covering scope.
Yeah, we do that internally as a matter of just
sure you
internal
do.
process, and the estimator that we use, I mean, been doing TAP A projects for 20 years or more, and
Well, that's
so,
both good and bad.
well, it's
he
all
or
good.
she-
I'm
he or
telling you,
she
it's all good.
may sort of automatically kind of fill in knowing how you guys work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's almost good to have someone with a fresh pair of eyes, kind
So
of.
we do, we have AM Fogarty from our side, so we have
They
two
do a third
estimates,
party,
and then we
yeah.
have a full day of reconciliation, so there's a lot of good conversation that takes place during, when we're looking at two separate estimates and talking through what is different between
Like,
the
what did you
two.
see here? I didn't see that,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
how
like a
come? Right.
full day of discussion on it,
Page
so
turn.
it's very thorough, yeah.
I think that multiple set of eyes on that review is very, very important.
I think so too.
To make sure that things aren't missed. I've been on projects where things have been missed and it gets really nasty later on.
Thank you.
Proprietary?
Yeah.
Next is proprietary product, Kate?
Yeah, so this is the current list of proprietary items that, that we need to put in front of you, so, I'm sorry if this is repeat information for you, but, by public bid laws, we have to get a vote to go proprietary on items that we deem are necessary, and, you know, you can't do that just because we say, oh, I like the looks of it. You have to have a sort of technical reason behind that vote, and it limits the bid scope to exactly what we put in the documents versus, versus 3 options or equal. And so we've got a list here. The first 4 are security related, and the reason we need those is because it interacts with other parts of the current building or future plans for security response. And so those things are all very specific to that sort of technical proprietary workflow in terms of that. And that's just, these are, if you're gonna do proprietary, these are usually the common ones that happen with it. And then technology following up on that is intercom. So because you're not doing an entire new building refresh or an entire renovation where we can specify any 3 options, we have to make the intercom for the addition work with what's already there. And so we need to specify parts that interact with your current system. And so that's the technology telecore. And the same goes for fire alarm and BDA devices inside the building, which are all sort of building office systems that are already in the building. So that's why you have this list. I think, are we asking for a vote tonight on this, or just putting it
No.
in front of you so that you know where the list is going? And then, you know, if you have any questions, comments, or current concerns, I think you should submit those to Kate, and then we'll make sure we come ready to address them at the next meeting, and then we're gonna ask for a vote before we put it out to bid.
At the middle school, we approved $83,000 for a special finish on the
The quartz flooring.
quartz flooring. Do we have
That's
new
that's
quartz
different.
flooring?
It's so. I'm glad you asked. This is different. The special finish is not proprietary. That's just an additional finish on an already chosen floor. The floor does not require. It's actually, the floor system is not required.
It's not a particular product though, Chris?
It's not.
Okay.
So the particular floor, the quartz floor, does not require the wax finish. The wax finish is there so that it looks nice and shiny like floors of that we're all used to. And it will help protect the floor in the long run, but we're not saying you have to use this specific wax coating from this specific person. It's just the cost of putting the finished product on top of the floor.
I wasn't sure if it was a specific product or not, because it was.
It may be related to the manufacturer makes a recommendation, but we're not, that's not the thing. But more to the point of this project is we are using that same quartz floor for the renovation and addition portions of the building at the town's request, Donnie and his team's request. But so that we don't run into this issue again, I'm putting in the wax finish for bidding, and then if you guys decide you don't want it, it's a deduct credit instead of an add change later. So we're building that in because of the lesson learned on the middle school, and it will be bid in that way with the finish that's required.
Chris, one thing, I have to mention this, I'm sure the consultants have taken this into account, but I want to make certain that for these, where they're calling out specific model numbers and so forth like that, there's no end-of-life issue. They may want to go with an the HP switches, the 1930s, because that's what they have. But if they're close to the end of life, they need to take a look at maybe upgrading it and see what HP has for the evolution. So just make sure that that's being taken into account.
Yeah, the proprietary list was sent over to the IT department. They're going through it now to make sure they agree with what's proposed, so I'm letting us
Yeah,
know
but
if
what
there's
I-
any addition. But I hear what you're
reversing
saying,
that-
What I'm trying to get at is,
Yeah,
it may be working and it's been working well for 5 years, but it's gonna go end of life in a year. Do we wanna go ahead and say, this is what we want now, it's gonna go end of life in a year, and now if we can get it, it's gonna be immediately obsolete,
Right.
so.
Yeah, our consultants will
Okay.
chime in if that's the
They
case.
should, but just check.
Any other questions for me?
talk through the prequel. So we have, much like we did on the middle school, a webinar scheduled for community outreach on June 5th at 6:30. So I know Bridget's working on putting a flyer together.
Yeah, Mary and I are working on it today. The only thing we need to do, Jim, is find out, I know Patrick, I think the link came from Patrick, the webinar link. I know it didn't come from us, so we just have to figure, or I don't know if it came from you guys, so we just have to do that. So once we put that webinar link in, we can get it out.
Okay, awesome.
So I just don't know, maybe we can look up the last middle school one and find out.
Yeah, I
where
can
that
ask some
came from.
questions in the office.
Who's presenting the webinar? Are we taking questions from the audience, like through chat
Yeah,
and all
typically what
that?
happens with the webinar, they can go in the chat box and ask a question, and then, they can see it, and usually the chair can see it as well to help answer. That's how we did it with the middle school. Mark Breen could see some of the questions. I could see the educational piece for Stephen.
So just a reminder, the next meeting is June 4th, and the following meeting is July 16th. I'll work to figure out if we need another meeting in between and how that falls with the estimate schedule. That's all I have.
So you said June 4th, and then we'll have a meeting between June 4th and then the July meeting, correct?
Yeah, I just want to look at how the estimates fall and the working group.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Any other business?
Can
Anything?
we talk about doing a tour? Tour?
What?
Tour of the building?
Oh, yes.
So,
Several
I
people-
brought this up to Jack.
Yeah, and I had mentioned it to Kate, what we would like to try
I
to
haven't been in
do.
the building in 30 years, other than the auditorium and the gym.
So it looks like 30 years.
What we'd like to try to do is have the committee have the opportunity to walk through the building to see
Yeah.
what the existing infrastructure is that we have to connect into, where you're gonna make the changes and so forth like that. And I would suggest later, what would work for everybody best, late in the afternoon?
Well, let's wait till school gets out, right?
Yeah,
In
you could
June.
do it late in the afternoon. I mean, maybe we could do it, if we're here June the 4th, I can check to see, what we have for activities or something, or maybe we can do it before this meeting if people are
And do the
available.
meeting up at the high school.
Yeah, we could.
I like that.
Let me check, I'll check with Steven and see what we have.
I'll just walk across the street, there
You
you
can
go.
take care of that, we appreciate it.
Yeah, oh, actually, that's the only day that there's no high school event.
Okay.
On the fourth,
Thinking
so,
now.
When's graduation?
So we'll have the meeting there.
first Sunday in June.
Yeah.
But after that, it's all like underclassmen and national honor, so.
Jeff, just so that June 4th is also the night that Select Board, Sewer and Water Commissioners, and Finance Committee are
That's
set
that
to
joint one?
Yeah,
You're gonna have
just
to pick.
a heads up.
What time is that one?
That's at 6 o'clock at the COA.
Hold on.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
So Jack, I'll
How
talk
many
to you and
buildings,
see how much
sewer
time.
and
It's gonna be busy.
Anything
You know
else?
I'll be.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Everybody's seconding, nobody's making the motion.
I did that earlier.
Jeff, you made the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Thanks, everybody.